Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor, Wax in the City. Experience the best in class wax at Wax in the City. From flawless brows to Brazilians that wow, their hair removal experts are here to give you silky smooth skin that feels and looks absolutely amazing. Okay, I'm here today with Amy Wald. She's the founder of Greenlux and the host of the Sustainable Hospitality Podcast. How you doing today, Amy?
I'm great, Chris. How are you?
Doing awesome, doing awesome. To be honest with you, I'm excited today. We're going to talk a lot about sustainable initiatives within hospitality, talk about trends, and really just kind of see where that takes us. But Amy, before we get started, you want to maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and then a little bit about Greenlux?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited too. We both live in Dublin, Ohio, so close to home. And so I'm Amy Wald, founder and president of Greenlux. We are a sustainable hospitality and tourism consultancy. I spent years in marketing and sales, selling on the supply side of hospitality in Miami, and then found myself working on cruise ships and really kind of had a come to Jesus moment, if that's apropos to say. Just found myself really looking around and thinking, aren't we supposed to be protecting the ocean? And then we would port in these communities, and it didn't look like they were very well taken care of, and it was kind of a facade. Now, that being said, the cruise industry has come a long way from there. So I'm sure there are a lot of practices that are not happening anymore. But that really caused me to take a step back and think about, what did I really want to do with my life, moving forward. So came back home to Columbus, Ohio, pursued a sustainable business degree and wildlife management degree at the Ohio State University. And during that time, and then after graduation, I just set out on a journey for about 5 years and traveled to the most innovative and sustainable hotels that I could find globally. And I actually spent 4 weeks living in the jungles of Sumatra, studying ecotourism. And so by that time, I was convinced that not only was that what I wanted to do because I was a nature lover, an animal lover, wildlife lover, but I was also really motivated by travel and tourism. And I also found myself being transformed by these experiences that I had. I've always loved a hotel, but what I was finding was I felt different when I stayed that were deliberately taking on initiatives that were helping the wider community and the ecosystems and nature that they were surrounded by. And so I really felt like I was onto something, although I know I wasn't the only one figuring this out or had landed on this, but I just felt like not only was there such a business case, but as we have seen these climate disasters and all of these terrible things that are happening to communities globally, we really, as an industry, have an ability to make a really big dent in some of these things and move the needle on a positive direction. And so here I am today trying to just get everyone on board and really show them that sustainability can be a differentiator. It can show you ROI. And it really is what I think is setting visionary hospitality leaders apart now. The ones who are really getting on board. I believe that this is the reinvention. Every industry has a reinvention, and I believe that this is hospitality's reinvention.
No, I absolutely agree. I think a lot of people are realizing that the traveler demand for sustainable properties and being able to physically see the sustainable solutions around are really winning travelers over. So, Amy, what role does Greenlux play in this? You started this company. How are you helping leaders out there?
So we really take a hands-on practical approach. And again, it's about how can we differentiate you from your competitors, from the competitive set, with what you already have, the culture you already have. that culture, finding those unique things about your location and place, getting your teams on board. So it's not a one size fits all. So again, we really try to just enhance what you're already doing, and that is through training, workshops. Certification is a huge driver in the market right now. I truly believe in 2 years we're going to look back and that is going to be a standard. So, thinking ahead, if everybody's certified, again, how do you stand out from your competitors?
Right.
And again, finding those unique ways to drive revenue through sustainability and wellness initiatives, because I believe those go hand in hand. So you mentioned traveler demand. For the first time in the past year or two, we've really seen leisure travelers getting on board and saying we are willing to pay more for sustainability. But we've known that corporate travel is demanding it. 56% of corporate organizations have corporate social responsibility targets and initiatives. And so they are actively seeking travel buyers and suppliers that can meet those RFP demands. So, again, where within your organization, if you are already have a large corporate travel business, how can we go after that business and see more revenue? Or how can we help you maybe capture that leisure traveler? So again, we really try to make sure that we are carving out a unique value proposition for you specifically through training, workshops, certification, procurement, and then we do a lot with marketing. So telling that story is a huge missing piece of the puzzle. The EU Green Claims Initiative is out there to eliminate greenwashing and green hushing. So making sure you're telling your story in a way that is relatable, but also doesn't break any rules, right? And making sure that you're utilizing all of the tools that you have. Of course, social media is a huge place, but in-room media, we do a lot of videos telling your story when those customers are sitting in their rooms, going through the channels, learning about all of those things that you're doing, making sure all of your profiles on the OTAs and Google are up to date. So that's what we do. The long answer to your question.
That's awesome. So on the side of a leader, right? If I come to you and I say, "Hey, we do all the regular things that other people do, right? The standard corporate things that other people do, but we'd like to raise our sustainability profile." What are some of the things you recommend? And realize everybody's it's not a one size fits all, but what are some of the things you're recommending, or some of the top trends you're seeing in the industry right now?
Again, not to beat a dead horse, but certification. Right now, I think 70% of leisure travelers are actively searching for hotels that have a sustainability verified third party sustainability certification. In addition, if you don't have that verified third party certification, Google will not promote you as a sustainable property, booking.com, Expedia. So you're really missing out on capturing travelers in that regard. The other basics are you can't manage what you don't measure. So if you aren't tracking your energy, your water waste, you don't know where your opportunities are. And that's why there is a true business case to sustainability. As you start to implement these new practices, you immediately, especially on the waste side, you're going to see your utility bills decrease. So, from a reducing operating cost to driving top line revenue, those would be two things that I would say immediately do. The third is training, right? I see a lot of organizations and they have such great intention, but they launch these robust programs, but they don't give their teams the tools and the knowledge that they need. If your teams don't understand the why and the how, they're the ones on the ground going to make sure that these things happen, and the opportunity to have an interaction with the guest. You're really, really overlooking something that I think can be incredibly valuable.
I think that's outstanding. So, if I am a smaller business, right? Let's just get a little bit more micro instead of some of these larger hotels that'll have a lot of resources and will see a ton of ROI out of measuring their utilities. If I'm a smaller business right now, what are some of the things I can do just at a micro level to be able to start participating in the sustainable economy?
Yep. So I would say do a waste audit. If you partner with your local municipality, they have tons of resources that are free to you. Typically, they will come in and do a waste audit, and you can identify some really crazy things that are being thrown away that are costing you money. So, that is one of the first things I would do. I would also, organize a green team. Depending on the size of your organization, I can guarantee you that there are 2 or 3 people that are motivated by this initiative and that would love to get on board and spend a little bit of extra time uh, doing the things to get everything up and running and then communicating those results to the wider audience, albeit your teams, and then, of course, your marketing department so they can tell that story. So, identify some people within the organization that want to head this up and, start with waste and start to be that business, or I'm sorry, that case study, and getting those teams on board by showing them what you're doing. The other is look at your purchasing. I think that this gets overlooked a lot too. You're spending, a lot of hotels are spending tons on purchasing plastic items and things that can really be eliminated and then be replaced with reusable items. And not only do you save money, but you're going to increase your impact by not having all of that stuff going to, of course, the landfill, but that's going to reduce again your waste and hauling fees.
I think the purchasing is a massive one where most teams can even at a department level look and see what they're buying and figure out how they can make a change there and really an impact for the positive. One of the other questions I have, and you brought this up a couple of times, is the storytelling, right? So when you are talking to clients and you're talking about their story, how are you framing that? And with the way the traveler demand is working right now, what frame do they need to place their story in for it to resonate with people as they look to find those sustainable businesses they want to do business at?
Yeah, this is again a large piece of the puzzle that gets overlooked. And this is where you can capture that top line revenue. Um, Actively travelers are actively searching for organizations that are not only doing sustainability initiatives but putting their money where their mouth is. They want to have one less thing to worry about when they go on vacation, right? So if you can say to them, we are mindful of our practices, and I think they're sophisticated enough that to know that you can't do everything, right? So don't feel like you have to do everything to tell your story. Focus maybe on one thing, but tell that story. And of course, your social media channels. But when we've done studies, and there's lots of statistics out there, travelers want to know what you're doing on your website. So they want to be able to go to your website and they want to be able to see that you have a dedicated page to sustainability. The other thing is people don't realize that you have a Google profile. Fill out that Google profile and make sure that what you're doing is being accounted for in there. If you have a certification, make sure that you have it in there and tell that story that way. We came up with a little bit of with a little framework that maybe people will find useful, but it's telling our story. So OUR. So, what's the origin of the place you're in? I heard you on a podcast, the other day, and you talked about everywhere someone resides and their place, you can find something unique about it. So, start with the origin. What's unique about the place, whether it's today or the history? And then that leads me to that uniqueness, right? What's unique about your organization maybe it's your building, maybe it's your broader organization, maybe it's the actual city, the state. And then how can you tell that in a responsible way? So that's just a little framework that we put together that kind of helps people go through the motions and start to tell that story.
I think that's great because, whether you're crafting something, that the guest is gonna see on your property or in your property, or you need a way to framework out a social narrative, I think that OUR framework is absolutely awesome. So, we'll make sure that we highlight that one and get that out to people because I think that's great. So, one of the things I saw, and I love your podcast, Sustainable Hospitality. You had an episode on the other day, with, BWH Hotels. So, what are some of the things that they're I mean, BWH is an expansive brand right now. They're growing every day. What are some of the things that they're doing, within their sites to really make a difference?
Yeah, I was really surprised, Chris, that they were taking such a stance. And I was also surprised that I think we've thought about BWH in the past as select service hotels, but they have a wide portfolio with luxury brands within that, almost 4,000 hotels. And Amy Hubert was on, and she was telling us about their commitment to certify every single hotel by 2026 to a sustainable certification. So I think when you're looking to other leaders in hospitality, taking note of what they're doing, because if it didn't make sense in the market, they would not be making those kinds of commitments. And to their, challenge, I think, is a lot, if not almost all of their hotels are franchised. So they really have to spend a lot of time educating their franchisees and their owners on why this is something they need to do in order to meet that commitment that they're making. So I just think that was incredible. And as far as certification goes, there are lots of them out there, and that's of course one of the things that we do is help you determine which one is best for you. But I will mention Green Key Global, and that is one that BWH has committed a lot of their uh, properties to, depending on where they are geographically. And Green Key Global really allows low barrier to entry. You can get your foot in the door regardless of what you're doing. Now, you do have to meet some mandatory requirements, but I think a lot of hoteliers out there today think, "Oh my gosh, we're not even near there," and that's okay. You get a really great roadmap that allows you to get your foot in the door for a low cost and then have a plan to, meet more demands or adopt more practices in the future.
I think that's great. So, if you put your kind of trending hat on, right, as you're looking down the road for the next, year, few years, what are some of the things people should be watching for as they're coming down the pipe?
Yeah. Again, certification, that is going to become the standard. I think you're going to see a huge, and we've already been seeing this, but a huge fusion in wellness. So, wellness and sustainability really just go hand in hand. And I'll tell you, I'm going to give a plug for a partner of mine out there, but they're called Nutrify, and they are wellness sprays. And they have a sleep one, they have a nausea one for hangovers, they have a B12 for energy, and there's one other one I can't remember what they are, but it's a great example of a one-off or kind of an ad hoc that even if you don't have a spa, it's a way to get your foot in that wellness store, tell a story about it, sell it in your gift shop, maybe even placement in your hotel room, or add on for a corporate traveler so that you make sure that you're in that wellness and sustainability space. Because I think we're going to just see that it's going to explode even more than we've already seen it. I also think that moving forward, nature based solutions and biophilic design, the earlier you can get sustainability into your hotel without having to retrofit it, just makes sense from a cost standpoint. So I think, and it's, it's easier to maintain nature. When we talk about nature-based solutions, in Columbus or in the Ohio climate, one of the easiest things you can do is plant native. And so not only is that an enhancement to our natural ecosystem and biodiversity, so it gives back to our native wildlife, but it doesn't take as much water and sunlight, so you're saving on those irrigation costs and those other things that you would typically have to do with something that isn't native. So I think those are three things that you're going to see moving forward that are going to take front and center.
So you mentioned, planting local. You mentioned here in Columbus. What are one or two organizations you've worked with locally here in Columbus that have seen benefit from what it is you're doing?
Great partnership with the Ohio Hotel and Lodging Association. So I run what they call the Sustainability Corner, and we are always trying to put out innovative ways, practical ways that people can get on board with these, I hate to call them trends, but with this movement, and really, again, get ahead of things in the marketplace. In a couple of weeks, I've organized an event at Ohio State, and it's with the Environmental Professionals Network. And we are having what we call Tourism for Tomorrow. So it is a great way that I'm hoping we can bring together lots of stakeholders, public, offices, government offices, hospitality leaders, tourism organizations, to really come together and say, as we see the population growing, Ohio is growing as a tourism economy. How can we beat out our competitive set? How can we win those leisure and corporate travelers? And this, I truly believe, is how we're going to do it, is by setting ourselves up as a sustainable destination and not a typical sustainable destination, right? Because people typically think of, oh, well, we need sustainability if we're near the coast or if we're in the forest, but it's really going to affect all of us, which I think we're all starting to see a little bit more and more. And again, from a business lens, it just makes good business sense.
Absolutely. So I think, a couple of the things that, may have gotten lost in here. And I think part of the conversation that everybody's going to be interested in, right? You gave us some great trends, but I think the underlying piece here was there was also some great ROI solutions here. Not only is traveler demand going to increase revenue, and if you're telling that story correctly, you're going to get more traveler demand as people discover you, pair that with certifications. But then there's also going through those underlying pieces of reviewing waste, cutting waste, looking through your purchasing, making sure that you're being efficient with your ordering, that you're reducing waste through your purchasing. And so I think that those great initiatives will definitely generate more revenue, reduce more expenses, produce that ROI, so that sustainability, which when this whole thing got started, was nothing more than a cost center, right? I mean, it was, I had to pay extra to do this, I had to pay extra to do that. And I think that, you would pay tens of thousands of dollars to get certified, when now it's a lot easier to do, a lot more cost effective. And again, it gets you to ROI quicker on some of these initiatives. So I want to make sure I called that out there, because I feel like for everybody listening to trends and everybody listening to some of those initiatives out there, you kind of forget that they pay for themselves. Moreover, especially through demand and people wanting to come to your destination.
Absolutely. And I think something that we don't talk about enough is the ROI that maybe you don't see overnight, but with employees. So, I think it's something like, I have a statistic, almost 60% of Gen Zers actively look for organizations that align with their values. And as we are trying to infuse and the hospitality and tourism industry, it is more and more important that we are making sure that we are paying attention to those things, to help with employee retention, and not only to keep them in the position they're in currently, but so that they feel like they want to grow and they want a career in hospitality. So I think that's something that gets overlooked a lot. And those are, again, back to that green team and those you know individuals that will really start to take ownership of this initiative, those are the ones that you're really going to see elevate. And it happens every single time I launch a program. All of a sudden, you see these individuals elevate and they have better performance. They're more excited to come to work and they just, all in all do a better job. And those organizations definitely see retention in their hotels.
I think that's great. Well, thank you very much for bringing all of this outstanding information to us. I know a lot of people are going to have a lot of questions. Before we wrap up here, I always love wrapping up with a few questions at the end here to give our listeners something to build on as we finish these conversations. So, question for you: I know that you're always learning and growing. What kind of things are you doing to learn and grow these days?
Oh gosh. Well, as a business owner, I feel like that's all I do. Is trying to learn something new to make sure I'm running an efficient business. But two things I'm really focused on is I'm always trying to learn more about really the operations of a hotel so that I can put myself in the shoes of that hospitality worker that needs to understand sustainability, but I need to understand what challenges and barriers they have in their positions and make it easier for them because the whole reason that you would hire us is so that your job is easier, right? And this is a smooth transition. So I am always trying to learn more and more about that. The other is this year, I'm going to do a TED Talk. So I'm really trying to learn about what that all entails. And I said it here first. So this is you're going to be my accountability partner in the audience. But yeah, so I'm trying to learn about what all it takes to do a TED Talk.
That's excellent. I would definitely watch that, and I will definitely be your accountability partner on that. Uh,
Thank you.
I would love to do one as well. I don't think I'm as dialed in as you are to be able to provide something that people would be that excited about. So I definitely can't wait to see that.
Yeah, thank you.
So next question: best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Ooh, best piece of advice. It was actually a very simple piece of advice. And it was while I was working on cruise ships. I had somebody say to me, don't take yourself so seriously. And I thought, gosh, it seems so simple, but I think if we can really apply that in our everyday lives to just, try to take the pressure off, not worry so much about what other people are thinking, and really just try to get in touch with what motivates us and what moves us. It's kind of a simple philosophy that works.
I absolutely agree with that. Last question is: what advice would you give yourself if you could go back in time?
I think I would say to myself, even if you have a job that at the time you don't really feel that attached to or inspired by, try to learn as much as you can from it to then take to the next one. Because that journey isn't always carved out. We don't, we think we know what it is sometimes, or sometimes we don't. But when we look back, I think we really, really realized that every single thing we did had a role to play and had an important, there was important things to learn in each of those.
I could not agree with that more, and I think if everybody looked at their job or the people around them as an opportunity to learn something, you're gonna take
Yeah.
something away from that, and you may not think you need it today, but 10, 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road, it's gonna come back, and it's gonna be meaningful in your ability to be able to move forward. So, I love that advice. Thank you very much for that.
Oh, yes. Gosh, you're welcome.
All right. So, Amy, as we wrap up here today, and I know that people are going to want to reach out to you to understand more about how they can have a customized solution of sustainability for their organization. Where are they getting a hold of you at? Where are they finding you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, of course, Amy Wald, WALD, Greenlux Inc. That's GreenLuxeinc. And we have a newsletter, which I try to make very easy to read, short and quick every month, and give you some practical tips and insights in the industry. You can sign up for, of course, the Sustainable Hospitality Podcast. Tune in. I learned so much from the people I get to. I'm so lucky to have conversations with. So that's a great place. And then please, if you're in the Ohio market or the Columbus area, I think our Tourism for Tomorrow event at Ohio State, that is on the Environmental Professionals Network. And maybe we can even link it in the show notes. That would be a good place to come and learn and gather insights and network. And that's going to be on February 11th.
Awesome. Well, Amy, thank you very much. It's been a great conversation, and look forward to seeing you on your TED Talk in the future.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate you having me on. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Hospitality Leaders Podcast. Thank you again to our sponsor, Waxing the City, and please make sure you like and subscribe.